A esta hora te conectas a una sola radio. Este es el sistema de emisoras Onda Digital en Colombia. Radio virtual, hecha por jóvenes, pensada por universitarios. Sistema de estaciones Onda Digital, un concepto diferente.
Hello everybody, my name is Zebib Neguse. I am the English teaching assistant here in La Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia. Welcome to our podcast called Diaspora. I'm here with two of my very good friends.
Juliana Caraballo, estudiante internacional.
And Enrique Cuellar, teacher here at the university. And today we're going to talk about something very interesting about migration, food.
But not the bad way, okay? Just like saying it's not going to be a boring episode about serious topics of migration. It's more actually like a fun way to talk about it. Because actually we're going to be talking about how food as communication and culture. And some of our experiences and our moments that keep us humble.
We have a lot of funny stories.
We have a lot of funny stories actually asking about food and how is our experience in other countries. So I think Sibib has most. So she's going to start with hers.
Okay, one story I have, this actually happened to me last week. I have lived in Medellin for 7 months. And I saw a sign that said Mazamorra. And I thought that meant manzana mora, like apple blackberry.
You were talking
juice.
about fruits.
Yes, a juice. And I ordered it and I was like, what is this? I was like, this is corn and water. And I tasted it and I was like, okay. I just wanted something sweet. I wanted a juice, so I was so sad.
But you didn't add something sweet to that thing, no?
No, but it came with the guava sweet on the side. What is it called? Bocadilla?
Yeah.
So the food is hard, guys. We know that. So that's why we're talking about it today. Do you guys have any stories?
I actually have one. Basically in Puerto Rico, I'm from Puerto Rico. And we call cake bizcocho. But there are 3 different ways to call a cake in Spanish. Bizcocho, which is the way we say it in Puerto Rico. Also, here in Colombia, it's called torta. And in other countries like Mexico, it's pastel. So this happened recently too. A friend of mine actually told us a story where he was trying to ask for a piece of cake. But the thing is, he said rebanada, if I'm not wrong, he said rebanada de pastel. And the person didn't understand what he was saying. So he was like, es tajada, because rebanada, which is the slice, is called tajada here instead of rebanada. And cake is torta in Colombia. So he was so confused at that moment. He was like, what?
But you were so lucky because sometimes maybe confuse that word tajada with another thing because that is a plantain piece, yeah? And you were maybe lucky because you didn't receive like that kind of thing.
At least for me, an experience that happened to me was when they offered patacones. I was like, do you want patacones? What is patacones, people? I do not know that. And then when they give it to me, it's tostones in Puerto Rico. So I was like, okay, so tostones in Puerto Rico are patacones in Colombia. So that way you see how even for food, it's complicated to communicate. Because obviously people think that traveling to another country is already hard because of the language, especially to the United States. It's already hard because you need to learn English and all that. But even food is complicated to ask for. Because maybe for me, a word is different for the country I am for. Example, in Puerto Rico, we call the grains, I think it is, habichuelas. And then here is frijoles. And I'm like, what? And then another thing is,
everything is different.
It is really different.
But in the same country, because it happens here. Yeah, you talk about mazamorra, but if you go to Bogota asking the same thing, you receive another thing. Yeah, because that is like a soap. Yeah, and when I ask about that, yeah, it was like many years ago. I was asking for mazamorra there. I love that thing that you hate. Yeah. But imagine, I was thinking in that like corn pop and and it was like a soap, but it wasn't like a real soap. No, it was something disgusting. Yeah, I'm
Something
sorry.
you don't like.
Yeah.
I hope
hate
we don't
that
have
thing.
anybody from Bogota listening
But
right
it
now.
happens. Look, it happens here in the same country. Sometimes here we mix we are confused with our own language. Yes, because words change, and that happens here and everywhere.
Actually, in Puerto Rico also happens. In Puerto Rico, there are two ways to call ice cream in Spanish. For most of us, it's mantecado. But here, mantecado is a flavor.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I actually
What
got
does
that.
mantecado mean in English?
But it's
Ice
tasty.
cream.
Oh.
Ice cream for us in Spanish is mantecado, but there's some other pueblos de Puerto Rico que they don't call it mantecado, they just call it helado, as simple as everyone else. So it's just like, wait a minute, Puerto Rico is really small. Like, it's just like 3.5 million people, and it's really small in the middle of the water. So how can the words be so different? That is part of how different cultures can be inside of the same country. But also, usually we think that it's going to be really a big difference from your country to another. Yet in the same country, you can have different experiences in food and in communication.
Yes, of course. Yeah, and sometimes not so good. Yeah, because here we are talking about things that are like funny, good, yeah, but sometimes you can feel like frustrated, yes, with your things. Because imagine a girl unpacking their food at school, yes, and all the friends talking about the smelling, because maybe they feel that is something, disgusting. It's not so good for them, yeah. But actually, you think that is something good. Yeah, what happened with that feeling? Maybe you feel uncomfortable, or you feel that you don't belong to that place. That is not so good.
Yeah, I mean, the United States is a country of immigrants, right? And we all want to think that the United States can be accepting of any culture, anytime, but in reality, a lot of people are sometimes critical about the food and culture of other people. So what Enrique was talking about in different schools in the United States, if different children are packing lunch and other students might have a negative reaction to it, which is unfortunate. I would also say, in my own experience, my family is composed of immigrants from Ethiopia. And so I'm part of the first generation of people in the United States. And in Ethiopia, which is in Eastern Africa, we eat some of our foods with our hands. And a lot of people have very negative reactions to it. They think it's dirty, they think it's weird. But in reality, it's not, because you wash your hands before and after, and it's just a different way to eat, just like eating with utensils.
People used to criticize a lot of things without knowing what is happening, or what those kind of things that we have inside of our culture are part of us. Just because, look what you said. Some people think that is something like disgusting, or something that is not like clean to eat with our hands. But look what you said. That is the difference between cultures, because you do that because actually it's clean. Yeah, you wash your hands and you eat in a different way. Yes, because it's something like more familiar. Yeah, you are with your parents, brother, sister, I don't know, and it feels like a community. Yeah, you gathering food. I think that is different. Sometimes culture just criticize, but don't focus in the real things that maybe those aspects have in our lives.
But that is also part of, as food is a way to communicate, it's also like an easy way for other people to discriminate us for the way we eat, what we eat, how the smell of the food. That actually Enrique has saw a documentary about a girl who had that type of experience, where she was, can you explain it a little bit further?
Yeah, that Vietnamese girl that she survived with her mom in a camp, and then she grew up in United States without actually feeling good being what she was, because she felt like insecure, or she felt like maybe she wasn't connect with the country.
She felt left out because she was Vietnamese.
Yes, and that was it wasn't good for her because she received many like comments about how she looked, about what she ate, about what she was, yeah, and she tried to like overcome those kind of things, trying to being American, but at the same time being Vietnamese because it was in her roots, yeah, and I think is something that maybe we can understand in a better way because we are part of our culture, yes, and we are part of the other cultures that maybe are like around us, yeah, because we are like sponges. We receive a lot of information, and that information becomes in something that is like part of us, no. I think that girl that we are talking about here go through many like unfair aspects in her life, but not because the other people was like rude with her, no, because she was surrounded by children, yes, but sometimes children are so like cruel, yes. Sometimes children say things that maybe they don't want to say, but just say.
But did you say without thinking?
Yes, and sometimes we feel like not so good with that kind of things that people say.
And that is pretty ironic to that Vietnamese girl to feel discriminated by her food because of the way it smelled, the way it was, that she wasn't American, to say it like that. It's pretty ironic, especially that situation happening on a country that is built of immigrants, because you know the percentage of like how many Latinos are in the United States, how many black people are there, and that is a really ironic situation, honestly.
Yeah, there is people from around the world. There are a lot of cultures mixing and being like in the same place, yeah, and sometimes that is something that we have to understand, that we are like part of not just our culture, no, we are part of all the cultures that are around us, because those kind of things build us as we are, yeah, and we have to consider those kind of things like part of our own culture. Sometimes we like reject being part of something that is not sometimes we think that those things don't belong to us, but actually belong, yeah, because they are in our city, in our maybe neighborhood. Sometimes we live in
our DNA.
Yeah.
If we make a DNA test, we have people and we have pieces of every single culture, I think, and that is a beautiful thing, and that is part of the experience of migrating to another country. Although I want to make like a point here, and that is migration doesn't need to sound as if living your whole life in another country and make a whole new world of yours. For me, it's more like just leaving a place and living for a certain amount of time. It doesn't need to be your lifetime. For example, I'm an exchange student this semester here at Colombia, and for me, I technically did migrate here to study, and I had to adapt to el sazón de aquí, the salt of here, the arepas every morning. So it's not always a bad situation, especially for us exchange students. It is kind of complicated to adapt at first, but then we look at the positive side. We meet new people, we learn about new accents, because let me tell you something, the Colombian accent in some places I'm so impressed. And then the different words, the different experiences, what here is touristic, what is, you know, so it's not always bad, the word migration, when you see it from that way. So for us as exchange students, we see it on a positive way because we're also studying. So don't take migration as a bad completely word. Let's just look the whole other way around it. And that is why we today wanted to talk about food. Because food is a really fun way to communicate with ourselves, although we can be discriminated by the type of food we eat is from our country and all that. It's still a really fun experience to learn the way they call your food in other country, how the taste is it, because let me tell you something, the patacones here are not the same as Puerto Rico's. You know, so those type of things are not the same, even if
you have to get used to that taste, no?
Of course, I have to. Do you know how hard it is for me to not have the sazón of Puerto Rico? You know how much I miss mi arroz con gandule? You have no idea.
Yeah. You know what I miss from the United States? I was really thinking, people always ask me, what food do you miss from the United States? And I always tell them it's the fact that it's so international in the United States. Because at any day I can have Chinese food, I can have Indian food, I can have Mexican food, and it's so easy to find. I just have to, I don't know, go a mile, go a few blocks. And I think that's why food is another good metaphor for migration, because there's simultaneously this acceptance of food, because people really love international food in the United States. But simultaneously, there's sometimes people are like, oh, what's that? Or I don't like that. Or I don't understand that food.
And even international food adapts to the flavor of the different country. Chinese food
is not here.
Not the same here.
No, but let me say something about that, because you said Chinese food here is actually not Chinese.
I
food.
hate Chinese food here. I love Chinese food in the United States.
I like the Chinese rice that they do in Puerto Rico, because it has so many things in it that, I mean, I actually tasted some Chinese rice here and it was really good too. But that is the thing. You meet someone that is actually from China and they're going to tell you, what the heck is that? That is not even our rice. Like, even international foods are adapting to the different cultures. So even food goes through that process of migration too, of adaptation to that new flavor.
And I would say I actually lived in China for 6 weeks once.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay,
Fun
okay,
fact.
girl.
Travel a lot.
And when I went there, I was so impressed by the food. It was so delicious. But in the United States and internationally, it's very greasy. It's very unhealthy. It's nothing like how it is in China itself. And even within China, there's lots of variety between North China, which is more meat-based, and South China, which is more like fish and seafood-based. And there are even parts of China that like spicy food a lot, and other parts that don't. So I guess it's just interesting. In the global scale, it's kind of reduced to fried rice, but it's so much more than that, you know?
Yeah, definitely. So we have seen in this episode that food can work as a way to communicate, as unfortunately a way to discriminate to other people, to discriminate all cultures, but also a fun way to adapt to a new culture, meet new people, and get to know more of that country. I think this episode has been actually kind of fun to familiarize ourselves with our moments.
It will be great that in the way that we get used to food, and sometimes we feel like connection with that be maybe something good to have into account, to make new relations with people too. Because look, we are surrounded by migrants here in Medellin. We got a lot of them. Yes, a lot of Venezuelan people that lives here. Even I said here in Medellin, our accent has changed a lot, but that is not something bad. I think that it's something good that maybe make us like proud of what we are, because we are different. Yes, we are like growing as a culture.
And actually, language could be a good topic for our next episode. So if you would like that, I think you can answer us to our social media, which is Onda Digital U. You can look at it on Facebook and Instagram if you would like to listen more about that topic of language. We can also talk a little bit about music and stuff. So we hope you actually like this episode. I'm Juliana Caraballo, exchange student.
Zabib Naguse.
Enrique Cuellar,
And
English
this
teacher
has
here at the
been-
university.
Oh, yeah, true. We're all from the Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia. I have to say it in Spanish because the English is going to be a little bit more complicated than that. And yeah, so thank you so much for listening to this podcast.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you, everybody.
And we hope that you have so much fun, as well as maybe keep in touch with us for our next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
A esta hora te conectas a una sola radio. Este es el sistema de emisoras Onda Digital en Colombia. En Colombia. Radio virtual, hecha por jóvenes, pensada por universitarios. Sistema de estaciones Onda Digital. Un concepto diferente.